So it's day one of riding my Chinese 500 quid Shine Ray motorbike out of Ulaanbaatar towards the steppe to see if I can find the places that I discovered 16 years ago when I first came here. So today at least it's nice weather and I'm going to be setting off down that road between the rainbow and the smokestacks and over towards those mountains and away from the traffic and the smog. Well, there's no way I'm getting across that. As it looks, I've hit a dead end. Take my hand and find expression in the silent night and let the moon break in. Let the moon break in. Well, there I am, day one, after leaving UB, 100 kilometres on the most insanely busy road with the most insane drivers, nasty tailgating, buzzing, cutting in, horrible driving. So I took the first opportunity I could to get off the tarmac and onto the grassland. There's my bike behind me, my cheap Chinese Shine Ray, absolute garbage, but it's got me here. And over there somewhere in those hills is where I'm going to go. God knows where it's going to take me, but as long as it's not tarmac, I'll be happy. And all around me, just a few minutes away from the road, it suddenly feels like the Mongolia that I remember. There are eagles in the sky, the sun is shining, my bike is working, so here we go. Day one, Mongolia. Welcome to Mongolia. Day one of my trip back to Mongolia. There's my little campsite down there, surrounded by the green hills. Just the sound of me and the crickets, and over there in the distance there is a road with a surprising amount of traffic on it. Day one has been really quite surprising. The volume of traffic on the road leading out of UB was insane, and the driving was absolutely horrendous. So nasty. Tailgating, buzzing past you with an inch to spare, cutting you up, ridiculously aggressive. Especially, I noticed, white people, the expats and foreign workers in their expensive Land Cruisers heading into the countryside for a day out and trying to kill motorcyclists. When I set off this morning, I did wonder how hard it would be to get away from the tarmac and find the empty spaces that I remember. When I first came here 16 years ago, we came in through the northwest corner from Russia, where it's empty, and to get where we wanted to go, there just were no roads. We were straight onto the dirt tracks, trails much like this, and open grassland like this. There was no other option. Coming out of UB, of course, you start on the tarmac, and it's different. It's all traffic and tarmac, and for a long time the road is on a big kind of embankment, so you can't get off it, and the land is fenced off because it's cultivated. But once you've ridden for about an hour, things start to change, and you see the opportunity to get off the road, and that's what I did, and eventually I ended up at this little campsite right here. Well, how do I feel on day one? Yeah, mixed bag. My bum hurts, my back hurts, my neck hurts. The real problem is my leg. My right thigh is still not right, and it's my right foot is the one that instinctively goes down when you have a wobbly moment in the sand. If I have a real moment and put my foot down hard, that thigh muscle's just going to go. So it's a real concern. I hate sandy trails anyway. I know I'm really not all that far out from UB, a day of riding with some wrong turns. But still, it's really hard to feel the emptiness of the steppe when there's a road that's so busy. Where are all these people coming from and going to? It's just a non-stop stream of traffic heading towards UB. Same as this morning, they were all heading west, away from the capital. To where? I have no idea. But I've never seen this many cars in a place so remote, so empty. It's bonkers. Two eagles over there circling over the hills and above the trail that I've just ridden on day 2 of my Mongolia ride, and that trail has brought me through a water splash with some very deep water to this rather nice little picnic stop and a chance to dry my shoes and socks after that water. 2 gares down there, the little round tents, and a load of livestock. There's the trail I'm about to follow. Through that gap in the hills over there, and there's more of the livestock that belong to those nomads, and there's the view all around, just wonderful Mongolian emptiness. Another eagle over there, and this trail, obviously quite a well used trail with lots of vehicles driving on it, but it feels like the wilderness. When there's tarmac, it ruins it. It breaks the spell. It doesn't feel like wilderness anymore. You see these wide open spaces with a line of tarmac cutting through the middle, and it just feels pedestrian. At least when it's a trail like this, it feels more natural and more of a challenge. It's like it's you and nature. When there's a tarmac road, it's you and the tolerance of boredom for rolling in a straight line for a very long time. Well, Mongolia day 3 in the morning. What time is it? It's 9 o'clock. I've stayed in the tent a bit longer. Yesterday it was so cold in the morning before the sun really got going. I thought, well, I may as well get up and get on with it, and that just led to cold riding. So I stayed in bed a bit longer. Today I'm deliberately trying to take things more slowly. And it's warming up quite nicely now. And then look at this scenery all around me. It's wonderful, even if it is kind of spoiled by the noise of that damn road over there, that motorway. There's a car, one of the steady trickle that's starting, and another hour or so it will be like a motorway. So busy, so noisy. But ignoring that, if you can, look at the scenery. So that makes me feel better after a really crappy day yesterday when I didn't enjoy it at all. And yesterday actually there were some bits where I took a shortcut to get off the tarmac. I looked at where the tarmac road was going, and it did a sort of right angle turn, and I thought, well, if I'm lucky I can cut that corner. And I was lucky. I managed to find a reasonably well-worn trail that gave me confidence that people go that way. If lots of people are going that way, it must go somewhere. Some of the land is very difficult to make your own way across. When you get nice smooth grass like this, well, I mean, it's still relatively bumpy, and this crappy Chinese motorbike doesn't handle it well. But when you get ground like this, you have a reasonable chance of just going cross-country, point to point. But a lot of the time, it's too bumpy, it's roughy, tufty, it's rocky. There are soggy bits, wet bits, rivers, chasms and canyons. It can be a challenge. I mean, look at that scenery over there. It's stunning. From a distance, it looks like nice, smooth, green grass. Get close up, it can be a challenge to ride across it. So to get away from the line of this road isn't so easy. Now, if you look at that road, you can see running parallel to it in the grass on both sides are previous generations of tracks. That's what the original trail was. Before the road came, there were just those trail marks in the dirt. Several generations of them. When one becomes too rutted, too bumpy, too muddy, people move to the side a bit. And one reason for putting the roads in is that it stops that kind of propagation of trails, which causes erosion and damage. And that road will have been there for at least 10 years. So those trails parallel to it, they've had 10 years to recover. It is still plainly visible. Sometimes you can be following what looks like a trail. It turns out it's more of an animal trail, and it doesn't go somewhere, or it just goes to someone's tent, someone's house. But I found this trail, but because I had that uncertainty of where does it go, will I be able to get through, and my fuel was getting, well, I was anxious about it. So instead of taking the time to slow down and enjoy the surroundings and then camp wherever I was at tea time, I kept pushing through because I had this plan to get through Bulgan and back onto my original route from 16 years ago. Today I'm not going to make that mistake. I want to slow down, take things more easily, stop to take more photographs and enjoy the scenery and have some picnics. One thing I can relax about is petrol. Now that I've done a couple of fill-ups, I've got a reasonable handle on the economy of that bike with the way I'm riding it and with my luggage on it. So I know what my sort of maximum range will be. But more importantly, Mongolia today is not like it was 16 years ago. Just along the road over there, there's a petrol station. Just along the road over there is a petrol station. One consequence of these roads and all these cars that have suddenly appeared is petrol stations are much more ubiquitous than they were when I was here 16 years ago. 16 years ago we had a bike with long range fuel tanks, and we could do well over 400 or 500k without trouble. And even then it was a worry sometimes, and there were times we did get quite low before we found a petrol station. And a couple of the small towns that we passed through, small towns with all sorts of trails going in and out, hard to find your way in, in a petrol station where someone went to go and wake up the person who ran the petrol station, and they came back to unlock and pump fuel by hand. Well, now there's a tarmac road through that little town in the middle of nowhere that takes you straight to it with no navigation problems, and there are massive, great modern petrol stations where you can pay by credit card. Mongolia day 3, and here's where the ride starts today. Looks pretty nice. I'm only taking a slight detour to loop back to the tarmac that I want to avoid. But look at it. That's like the Mongolia that I remember. I can still hear the traffic on the road away in the distance behind me, but I'm just going to go over there to see where it goes and then loop back over to the road. Look at it. It's spectacular. That's Mongolia, not the crappy tarmac roads. Day 3 Mongolia. Down there behind me is my little campsite for tonight, and this is my scenery all around. It looks quite nice, but the ground is very rocky for putting tent pegs in, and there are so many flies buzzing around. I've picked a bad spot for flies, but I ran out of time and I needed somewhere to camp, and I found this place. There is a road down there, a trail, but hopefully at this time of night nobody's going to be bothering me. So there we are, day 3 Mongolia, campsite. So day 3 Mongolia, there's my little tent, there's my little motorbike. Well, what an interesting day. I woke up this morning determined to try and find a way to get some enjoyment out of this trip, because honestly for the first 2 days there's been a few moments of nice scenery. Nothing's gone badly wrong, but I haven't enjoyed it, mostly because of the tarmac and the terrible traffic. So today I woke up determined, and I decided to take a chance on a little track, a trail that I found going up to a little town, and it looked like it would loop back. First mistake, trusting what I see on Google Maps in Mongolia, because although it did loop back, or at least it turned in that direction, the trail coming back was barely used, and I ran into a river that I couldn't cross. So I had to turn around and come all the way back, a whole day of riding to get back where I started. So because I had to double back, I've done 200 kilometres off-road. So that's 200 kilometres of potential breakdowns and damage and crashes, all to get back where I started. So it's hard not to be a little disappointed with that, even if I did enjoy the riding more than previous days. But I expected to end up a bit closer to my goal to the west, to pick up my former campsites, even though it's tarmac roads all through there now. But I'll do that tomorrow. At least I haven't had any accidents. I think the bike is still in one piece, it's still running. I have lost one of my power banks. Lost, or maybe it was stolen outside the little mini market where I stopped to get supplies yesterday. So that's annoying. So, mixed bag. I enjoyed the riding, but it didn't go according to plan. Well, that's Mongolia for you. Well, this is my campsite, the 3rd day in Mongolia. And just listen, there's no noise except the insects and the occasional eagle. Okay, there's a trail just down there, but nobody's using it. Maybe one car every hour. And look at it, it's just the Mongolian. I'm going to call it countryside rather than wilderness, because just down that way there's a lot of cattle, goats, and something I've never seen on my previous visit to Mongolia, cultivated agricultural land. Massive great fields of wheat and oilseed rape. Of course, it looks very pretty, but it's all fenced off, so you can't go in and camp there. It's cultivated land. Mongolia day 4, an early start because it looks like rain might be coming. Well, I reckon this trail is the trail that I rode on 16 years ago, heading from Murun, aka Moron, over to the east towards Bulgan and then UB. Because we often followed the line of the telegraph poles. And that looks like a well-worn trail. I reckon that's most likely the trail that we were riding on 16 years ago to do the 200k to our next campsite. Today, 16 years on, we have this. And thankfully, at the moment, this early in the morning, the road is very quiet, and actually you can kind of get used to the tarmac when there's no traffic. The tarmac isn't the problem is the cars. Well, day 4 in Mongolia, and I finally found one of our former camping spots from 16 years ago. This rather unappealing patch of ground overlooking Lake Akimag. And this, where my bike is parked, that's pretty much exactly where we parked 16 years ago. And there's the lake. The thing is, I don't know how we found this so easily, because getting here was quite a challenge. Over these hills behind me were very rocky ground. I had a real struggle. But if you look down here beyond the lake, you can see the tarmac road, which makes things a lot easier, but you can also see some of the older trails. Maybe it's the presence of that tarmac road meant the access to this point wasn't so obvious. But anyway, this is exactly where we camped 16 years ago. When I came to Murun, aka Moron, 16 years ago, the road into town was a little dirt road where I got a puncture from a big old nail and saw a man riding a old Russian motorbike with a sheep over the handlebars. Now, there's a tarmac road leading into high-rise buildings. There's a sign just here saying there's a tourist camp. It's completely different. What was just a tiny little town of crappy little houses, low-rise buildings, looks like a full-fledged city. Toyota Prius, Toyota Prius, Toyota Prius. Toyota Prius, Toyota Prius. Toyota Prius. SUV, SUV, Toyota Prius. SUV. Toyota Prius, Toyota Prius. It's like some kind of joke. They're all driving around in circles. Toyota Prius, some SUV, Toyota Prius. Toyota Prius. Toyota Prius. Toyota Prius. It's just incredible. It's no longer the land of the Nomad, it's the land of the Toyota Prius. Mongolia, day 4. Here's the view from my crappy little Hotel 5100 in Moron, where I didn't expect to be stopping, but the pain in my bad leg that I hurt in Vietnam is certainly glad to be in a hotel. My neck and my backside are glad to be in a hotel with the pain from riding that horrible little bike. I know that this rainstorm is rolling in and the forecast is thunderstorms. I'm even more glad to be in a hotel. I feel like I've wimped out not being in a tent, but watching this windstorm kicking up and the dust blowing, right about now I would be trying to find somewhere to camp. It doesn't look good, so okay, I've wimped out, I'm in a hotel. I don't regret it for a second. The thing is, 16 years ago, there were days like this. We just got on with it. We put the tent up. What else were you going to do? But now I look back and I think, how did I cope with doing that? There's more lightning. Yeah, we just took it in our stride 16 years ago. Right now, the mere possibility of it made me run for a hotel. That's what 16 years does to you. Oh, day 5 here in Mongolia, and I've just come into a little supermarket in the town of Moron. And in Mongolian supermarkets, you can buy a motorbike and ride away on one of these glorious beasts. And the price, 3 million Mongolian Torog is about, well, less than 700 quid. You don't get that in a British supermarket. Here's one of the Gaz trucks, looking immaculately restored, unless they still make them new. I don't know, it's in good condition, but they seem to be exclusively for tourists. Mongolia, day 5. I'm taking a day off in Moron. The hotel's actually not bad for what it is. I mean, the food at breakfast was awful and the price is astronomical, but in a place like this you don't really have any choice. And when you arrive in the rain on a motorbike and the forecast for the next day is thunderstorms, well, they kind of had me over a barrel. So yeah, but I'm happy to take a rest. I'm 16 years older than I was last time and I don't have the energy to keep going, especially when my leg that I knackered in Vietnam means that it's even remarkably difficult just to put up a tent. So yeah, taking a day off. The rain is coming this afternoon. The next few days look good, so hopefully I will be on my way again tomorrow. Day 5 in Mongolia, and here we are in Marun, Chingungav Square. Chingungav, this guy on the horse, was the leader of a rebellion against the Qing dynasty, whatever that means. But there we are. This is the central square in Moron, which now has a cinema. I mean, it boggles my mind that this place has a cinema. When I came here 16 years ago, it was just a scruffy, muddy, dirty crap hole. There's no other way to describe it. It was a crap hole. It was the sort of place you really wouldn't want to stay. But here we are. I'm staying for today because the rain is coming. Tomorrow, I'm going to head to find one of the most spectacular viewpoints that I saw 16 years ago. First, came over this hillside on a dirt track and saw the Delgamarun River. I wonder what it's going to be like now with a tarmac road going through it. Mongolia, day 6. Look at this terrain. I've been riding through this for 3 hours now. I've still got another 2 hours to go. I've barely seen another person, just a few of the ubiquitous Toyota Prius. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it's slow going on these bumpy trails if you don't want to break the bike. But this is exactly the Mongolia I remember. Endless grassland with just a dirt track through it. Day 6 off to a cracking start. What an absolutely glorious morning. There's my bike, there's the hilltop Ovu shrine, and down there on the plain beyond the river is the town of Marun. And in the sky all around me, it's just full of eagles. I don't know if the camera will pick them out at this scale, but they're absolutely everywhere. There's not a breath of wind, or barely. There's hardly any sound of traffic. It feels just like when I was here 16 years ago. And now the eagles are all circling down on that hill. And no sound of cars, I can now hear the calls of the eagles. Absolutely wonderful. Day 6. Day 6, and here is the Mongolia that I remember. Not far outside Marun, the tarmac stopped. The upside is that there's no endless stream of high-speed SUVs blitzing you all the time. The downside is that it's really slow going and it's bloody difficult. There's the endless shaking, bouncing, rattling of the washboard ripple effect that builds up in the sand and the gravel. It also makes me wonder how the hell we managed to do what we did 16 years ago. I'm just constantly worried about puncturing on all the jagged rocks, or crashing on the sand, or the sudden bumps when there's suddenly an old rut crossing the main route and you can't see it until it's too late and you hit it and bounce through the air. But look at it, what a spectacular wilderness this is. And the most amazing thing about it, as you can see in the distance there, the Toyota Prius that handles it all so easily. Mongolia, day 6, heading west from Marun, and here is today's picnic spot by the Marun River. How about that? You've got to admit, that is very pretty. This is the Mongolia that I remember. The thing is, it's been easy to forget just how hard it is to ride on these dirt trails. You see this one's quite smooth, but a lot of it's very slow going. I'm doing about 30 kilometres per hour average because it's so rough and bouncy. When you're by yourself, there's a mental aspect to it as well. But then you get to a place like this and you think, wow, that's all, wow. There was an eagle up there somewhere. My bike hasn't broken yet, touch wood, don't want to tempt fate. Look at it. Day 6 in Mongolia, and I've finally reached one of the viewpoints that I most remember from 16 years ago. I come over this pass and get the first view of the Marun River. Which looks like a prehistoric world. It's spectacularly beautiful. There are eagles flying. The view is just stunning. delighted to have found this place again. And it's just exactly as I remember. All the time I spent the last few days riding on tarmac thinking this isn't Mongolia I remember. Well, this is exactly as it is in my mind. Day 6, Mongolia. Over there behind me is the Dolgamarun River, just the way I remember it, looking like a land where dinosaurs walk the earth. Just around the corner from the Dolgamarun River viewpoint is the next spot that I have such memories of. This ovu on the hilltop. This ovu has steering wheel covers that have been thrown on as offerings, and I'm sure they were here 16 years ago. I wonder, they're plastic. I wonder if they're the same ones. And up there on the hillside is another little Buddhist shrine with spinning prayer wheels. Oh, it's amazing to be back here and that it's exactly the same, except for the Toyota Prius that's driven all the way up the hill. "16 years ago we saw nobody here. Now look at it, there are 5 Toyota Prius. I swear 2 out of every 3 cars in this country is a Toyota Prius. It's amazing. There's even a little toilet facility here. And the trail is so much more obvious because with 6 times as many cars, it's been worn down through the grass, through the soil, to the sand and the gravel. 16 years ago, it was just a faint line in the grass." Mongolia, day 6. Look at this terrain. I've been riding through this for 3 hours now. I've still got another 2 hours to go. I've barely seen another person, just a few of the ubiquitous Toyota Prius. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it's slow going on these bumpy trails if you don't want to break the bike. But this is exactly the Mongolia I remember. Endless grassland with just a dirt track through it. Day 6, and it's now after 6 p.m. I've been on the go since 8 a.m. riding pretty much non-stop except for stopping for a picnic and to take photos. I've passed through the town of Kalban, managed to get petrol, which is good. My next target is Bayantes, which is another 95 kilometres away. There's no way I'll do that tonight. And the reason I'm pushing on is because it's such slow going on these trails. It's been trails like this the whole day. Really rough. I don't remember it being this hard. It's really physically tiring, uncomfortable. It requires total concentration. It makes me even more impressed with what we managed to do 16 years ago. And in the last 10 hours, the terrain has been much like this. And apart from the odd Toyota Prius, the occasional ger, the occasional nomad shepherd on a horse, it's just massive emptiness that goes on and on and on. 10 hours of riding and it's still just massive, enormous emptiness. Day 6 in Mongolia, and there's my campsite, and just look at this unbelievable landscape. And it's been like this all day. I've had a long day, almost 11 hours of riding off-road the whole way, and it's incredibly hard work. It just makes me so impressed with what we achieved 16 years ago. And I've got the benefit of prior experience now and modern technology to assist, but still, my bike, this Chinese bike, isn't as good as my Yamaha was, but my God, it's hard work. I'm exhausted, but it's worth it. When you find a place like this, you can see the little white gears of the nomads down on the plain. There's various livestock all around, but look, there's the next gears. You can see they're dotted so far apart. I mean, there's one, and then there's your neighbours over there. Amazing. The first few days, leaving UB, finding lots of tarmac and finding it just not the same as the Mongolia that I remember. It was very disappointing, disheartening. The tarmac tightrope that you're trapped on with the terrifying traffic constantly buzzing past. It's just annoying. So it's nice to finally find Mongolia the way I remember it. I mean, look at this. There's no tarmac for 100 miles in any direction. There's a handful of gears. There are more goats than people. And I've seen more motorbikes than cars today. On the other hand, the trails are such rough going, it does give me a different perspective on that tarmac. Sometimes it is nice to just be able to make rapid, easy, safe progress without the risk of breaking the bike or falling off. Has reminded me of what I seem to have forgotten, which is just how long we spent riding every day. It's taken me 11 hours of riding today. 11 hours. And we were doing this every day. We'd been doing this day in, day out for months from England. I remember it being difficult and challenging, but I've forgotten how long it really took. I wonder what those people are having for dinner down in their gears over there. I'm eating a Mongolian beef stew and drinking Altan Turu Mongolian vodka, which is rather hot from being in my pannier bag in the sun all day, but still, here I am. Look at this. Just look at it. What more could you want? Well, after a day on these dry, dusty trails, a shower would be nice. I'm absolutely covered in dust. Everything's filthy. The bike's filthy. All my clothes are filthy. A toilet would be nice, but that's the toilet over there. And although my solar charger is working nicely, the tent's going up faster and faster every time, the one thing that this campsite is really lacking is a mobile phone signal. But if you take away the solar panels, satellite dishes, mobile phones, motorbikes, and the Toyota Prius, that's a way of life that has existed in this form for thousands of years. And they're probably already drunk on their homemade vodka. It's the morning of day 7 in Mongolia. It's rather wet and windy and cold. Finally stopped raining. Well, just a little bit of drizzle left. It's been raining since 4 a.m. Not very heavy, so hopefully the ground isn't too bad. But I've just packed a still wet tent. There is a small patch of blue sky forming to the west, which is where I'm heading. And I'm not staying here all day. For one thing, I just knocked over my cup of coffee before I'd finished it, so may as well hit the road. It's nice and sunny at the moment, but through the night and the early most of the morning it rained, and that has turned some of the ground to mud. And this patch of mud just here is where I just crashed. Thankfully with no particular damage. A bit of a struggle to get the bike out of the mud, to pick it up, to get it out of the mud. It's still running. The brake lever was jammed, but I've unstuck that. I'm covered in mud. The bike's covered in mud. Everything on the bike is covered in mud, but I'm back upright in one piece and on the move again. Oh, day 7, the sun's come out at last. And I found a very similar view to one of my favourite photographs that Dave took 16 years ago. It's a photo that reminds me how intimidating and inspiring that magnificent wilderness is on that incredible scale when you first encounter it. It takes me right back to that sense of wonder. I didn't get quite the same perspective here. I think we were a bit higher up on the hill, but the feeling was the same. Well, Mongolia, day 7, and I've spent the whole day coming through empty wilderness like this. God knows what this little hut is for. Of course, it's just miles from anything. I've got a long way to go. I've been riding a long time, but the rate of progress has been really slow. The trails are so rough and bumpy. Between Kalban and Tez, really slow going, sandy, rocky, bumpy, very difficult. From Tez, where I've just filled up with petrol, since then, last half an hour, it's been much faster. But still, it's making me long for some tarmac after all my moaning about it earlier, and hoping that there is tarmac where I expect it on my plan to come back to UB on the southern route. I plan to go west to Ulangom and then south down to rediscover some of the places where we camped, including the one place that really sticks in my mind more than any other, which was a beautiful campsite next to our big rocky outcrop where the Mongolian nomad cowboys came to meet us, which was something I'll never forget, and so that's where I want to get to. But then the plan is to take the tarmac road, the AH4, Asian Highway 4, which I believe is tarmac all the way from Ulangom back to UB, and if it's not, I'm going to be in trouble. I don't know if I've got the energy for it. 16 years ago, I was 16 years younger, it was the first time doing it, and we had a purpose to get all the way around the world. Now I'm just killing time, and I'm not sure I've got the drive to reverse this route again. Well, here's my day 7 campsite. Doesn't look like much, but I've actually managed to find somewhere relatively flat, although a bit lumpy, and more importantly, out of sight of the road, which is over there, the trail rather. But this little bit here, this dry river bed or whatever it is, this is interesting because everything else that I've been through for the last hour is flat. And I was, because of the rain delayed start, I was riding later than I normally would. I ended up forced to stop wherever I am because the sun's going down, the light's going. It's light enough to put up a tent, but it's not light enough to see all the ruts and gravel and sand and holes and bumps and lumps in the trail, and that's when you have an accident. So here we are, campsite day 7. It's been a long ride. I've done 280 kilometres, something like that, and a lot of it on very sandy, rutted tracks. Very difficult to ride on, and really, for a lot of the time today I found myself thinking, why am I doing this? And I've had enough. I'm looking forward now to the tarmac to whisk me back to UB, hoping that it is actually where I think the tarmac is. But then the trail flattens out a bit, smooths out, you pick up some speed. Now that's good fun, but you've still got to be really careful. A moment of inattention, a little bit of over-optimism with the throttle, you hit a bump, you hit a patch of sand, something unexpected, and you go flying, the bike goes flying. I've already got a sore ankle from where I crashed in the mud this morning. Mongolia, day 7. I have a nice sunset around my tent. I have complete peace and tranquility. I have a pain in my back and my neck from riding the bike. I have a pain in my bum from sitting on the bike. And my left ankle is really swollen. It must have taken a knock when I crashed in the mud earlier on today. And I'm absolutely shattered from riding 10 hours on those dirt trails. But you know what? Chilling out in a campsite at the end of the day makes it all seem so much easier, as does a bottle of Mongolian vodka. I often wonder what the nomads do in their gers in the evenings. Of course, they've got a lot of work with their livestock and cooking and family stuff. But also, who needs TV when you're watching the sunset? Who needs music when you're listening to the birds calling? I find myself sitting here, there's absolutely nothing to do. I'm just sitting by my tent, eating some food, having a bit of vodka. And it's never occurred to me to want to turn on Netflix or put on the radio, because I'm just absorbed in watching the world change around me. The moon's coming out. The sunset has lost its colour now. It's down behind the hills. Day 8, Mongolia. There's my little campsite. And a nice sunrise. Day 8 is off to a much better start than yesterday. But over there, where I'm headed, I'm hoping that's just darker skies and not rain clouds. But right now, my little camping spot is beautiful. There's some rain from those clouds over there, but it looks reasonably promising. Day 8, Mongolia. It's early, 7:15. There's the trail I'm following. And here's something that I never saw 16 years ago, and now I'm seeing it all the time. Farms like this with massive wheat fields that just go on for miles and miles and miles. You see there's more, that dark green patch over there is more. And I've seen some of these farms, the trail that used to be there is now a massive diversion around fenced off land. And yesterday I struggled to find somewhere to camp as the sun started going down, because I was sandwiched between enormous wheat fields that went on for 10k, 20k, 30k, wheat field, wheat field, wheat field. And of course you can't camp in somebody's cultivated land. So there you go, that's the new Mongolia. Mongolia, day 8. Here's a little example of the trail conundrum. There's on my map, I need to be going pretty much straight ahead, but there's one trail goes to the left, one goes to the right. Now it's probable they both go over that hill and they come back together on the other side. But sometimes trails like this split and go off. This one will go off to a completely different place to that one. So which one do you choose? It can be frustrating. I'm looking at that line of telegraph poles and seeing that it's heading more towards the right hand side, so I'm going to follow the right hand trail. Day 8, and I found Barun Turun. Now this town was one of those places that 16 years ago we had a really difficult time trying to find this place. There was a fuel dump here. This is why we needed to get here. There it is, look, it's on the hills up over there in the distance. You can see the cylinders of fuel, and we were desperately short. And finding this place seemed incredibly hard. Now it's easy. And look, there's a massive, great sign. Barrington and up over there in the distance is that fuel dump. Mongolia, day 8. Over there is Lake Ovs. Just barely see it on the horizon. There's the sandy trails that I've got to keep following for another 60 kilometres. I've been doing this for 6 hours so far today. I've barely made any progress. It's horribly sandy, rough, bumpy. A lot of the time I'm following along parallel on the side in the unmarked ground, which is still not exactly smooth. And then that brings me to this little thing here. Yeah, that one. That nut, which is right next to where my foot goes, on the foot peg, that's what cracked my ankle when I fell off in the mud yesterday. And every time there's a bump or a lump in the ground, it hits me in the ankle. And the lumps and bumps in this ground, that's like 3 times every second. Day 8, Mongolia. I'm absolutely knackered. These trails are just so slow, sandy, rutted, dry, bumpy. Some of the sand is so difficult. I'm doing 15, 20 kilometres per hour on the verge of crashing the whole time. My back is killing me from tensing up, controlling the bike through the sand. Meanwhile, the occasional car, I've seen 2 cars have come flying past me at ridiculous speed. They're Toyota Prius, of course, it can go anywhere. I do remember that once you get into the area of Lake Ovs, it gets much more arid and dusty, but I don't remember the trails being this bad. It's just sand. This is a reasonable bit, but look at the washboard ripples that just drive you mad, shaking and bouncing. It's just sand, sand, sand. I hate it. What can I say? I'm in a hotel room and I have one of these. I'm exhausted. 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours or something of just sand, nothing but sand. Sand rutted with those horrible washboard ripples that make it so hard, so uncomfortable. I spent 9 hours just trying not to crash. And it was hot and dusty. It wasn't like that 16 years ago. 16 years ago, it was relatively easy going as far as I remember it, and there wasn't much sand. But now, well, there's so much sand because the effect of driving over those trails kills the grass, which accelerates desertification. Climate change comes along, and so it's all sand. And then the tracks get wider and wider because there's more and more traffic, and they get rougher and rougher because there's ever more traffic, more cars than there ever used to be. So I really see now why Mongolia needs tarmac. And when I finally hit the tarmac just outside Ulaangom, where I am now, it was a blessed relief, as was seeing this hotel just on the edge of town. Nice clean rooms, all new. So new, in fact, that there's no hot water. So it's not all that far removed from camping at the side of the road. I can't have a hot shower, and the restaurant is closed. Day 9 in Mongolia. Here we are in the town of Ulaangom at this enormous new hotel, which doesn't have hot water. In January, the average daily temperature in Ulaangom is minus 32. Can you imagine staying here if it's minus 30 degrees all day and you can't have a hot shower? And they've fitted the rooms with bathtubs and there's no hot water. It's ludicrous. Looks good. It isn't. Over there, mountains, loads of apartment being built. I looked up the figures, and this town, the population is 50% more than it was 16 years ago. There's still not much more here than a few petrol stations. I looked on the map for points of interest, tourist attractions, etc. There's one museum, which will be rubbish, like they are in every small Mongolian town, and that's it. There is nothing to see, nothing to do. It's just a staging point, probably because it's got lots of hotels, probably because we're about 50 miles from the border with Russia, and we're at the end of the tarmac road that comes all the way from UB, so a lot of tourists probably come this way. And this sort of thing is standard for Mongolia. Just slap an advertising sign right in the middle of the pavement so that you can't walk past it, and people have had to go take a detour through the mud. There's not really much going on in Ulaangom, but I needed a hotel after 3 days of those really tough trails between Murun and Ulaangom. 16 years ago, I remember those trails being in good condition, and where they weren't, most of the time anyway, we were making our own trails across the grass. The Yamaha could handle that. This crappy Chinese bike really isn't good at soaking up the bumps. But 16 years ago there was a dry patch around Lake Ovs, but the rest of it was in good condition, and even around Lake Ovs it wasn't sandy, whereas now it's sand all the way between Ulaangom and Kalban. Even east of Kalban, where it's less sandy, the tracks are so bumpy because there's so much more traffic now. They've really been churned up. They're at least twice as wide as they were 16 years ago with all the attempts to make new trails, but the constant washboard ripple effect, it just drives you insane. 16 years ago, those trails were in good condition and it was mostly grassy, and we were making our own trails across the grass. We were flying along. It was superb. But now, that northern area that I remember as being green, I remember Mongolia as being green. Well, now it's a desert. It's a sandy desert, and it's not fun to ride.
Yeah, trucks turning on its biggest supporters somewhere from the undisclosed location might penetrate Venezuela.
Day 9 Mongolia at the Nomin supermarket, which has everything. Even motorbikes. Still amazes me that you can just walk into the supermarket and for about 700 quid or something you can buy a motorbike all equipped with pannier racks. Look at this. 700 quid just walk into your supermarket.
Hello.
He's having to back up to take another run at it. Oh, Mongolia, day 10, a lovely sunny day. Back there to the north is Ulaangom, and there's my bike. And over there in the distance is a snow cap still on the mountain. And here is my problem. I looked around for a long time wading through the water. I just couldn't find any route without a very deep bit in the middle and very rocky underneath. I nearly fell in several times. The force of the water in the deepest parts made it hard to stay up. Was I willing to take the risk? It would be 50-50 on a good day. What worried me most was having no strength in the leg I injured in Vietnam. If I had to put a foot down, my leg would not be able to take it. And worse, the pain in my back had grown from bad to worse to agony. I was barely able to cope with the back pain in a straight line on smooth tarmac. Would I be able to manage the bike through this water? I was just flying the drone to get an alternate look at this river, and this eagle got very interested and came very, very close to snatching my drone. It is at least a little reassuring that these guys didn't just ride straight through and make me look a fool. They've stopped and obviously know it can't be crossed safely. Day 10, I think, Mongolia. Behind me is this river. I just can't get through this. There are bits that are too deep, too fast running. Now there's another motorbike has turned up, a couple of Mongolians on it, and they've stopped and they don't seem in any rush to try and figure out a way across. I reckon what they're probably going to do is wait for a truck to come along. One of these sort of pickup truck type things. Hitch a lift on that. Now I could do the same. 10, I had to abandon my attempt to reach my former campsite because of that river. It was a 50-50 call, and well, the fact that it was quite easy to make that decision shows that I'm too tired to be taking those sorts of risks. So then I've had a very long, very tedious drag down this long straight road. Just maximum attack on that little Chinese bike, full throttle. It hasn't complained, the bike, I'll give it that much. It's just very uncomfortable. So uncomfortable that when I saw this Hotel Paradise, I thought I'd give it a chance. I was looking around for somewhere to camp, and it's all just very wide open. Now that I passed some great camping spots when it was too early to stop, but now it's just so wide open. There's nowhere particularly appealing. So I plumped for Hotel Paradise, and it is not paradise. And hopefully tomorrow I can slow down a bit and take time to explore some scenery, because today, I don't know why, because I had to turn round at that river, I just got into a mindset of wanting to make as much progress as possible towards UB, which is something like 1,400 kilometres from where I was to UB, and I wanted to put a dent in that. I think there's still over 1,000 kilometres to go down that way. So you see the Chinese bikes are very popular, and I'm off the bike, and that's really good for my backside and my neck, which just can't take it anymore. One thing I've noticed, although Mongolia is very empty of people, where you do get even a small number of people, it's absolutely filthy. There's so much litter and rubbish and garbage. It's all really unattractive anywhere near people. Dogs, just trash everywhere. To enjoy this country, you really have to get away into places like that, where people are scattered far and wide. Even then you still find the places, there's rubbish everywhere. Plastic bottles. I've been packing up all my trash and dropping it in bins at petrol stations and hotels and things like that, carrying it with me. Take out everything that you take in, that's my rule. But I mean, I can see plastic bottles, glass bottles. Oh, there's another thing, broken glass vodka bottles everywhere. Mongolia, day 11. It's very, very cold and windy. Even now in the hottest part of the day, it's still very cold. I'm just ploughing east. The road is long and boring. By necessity of construction, it goes through the flattest, least interesting bits. There's still some nice scenery, but this bike makes it very uncomfortable and slow going. It's just so bloody cold. So still a long way to go to get to UB, but that's where I'm headed. Here is the beautiful rolling green grassland steppe that is the Mongolia that I remember, and it's still here. There's most of the country is like this. The last 2 days I've ridden through 800 kilometres of this stuff. It's just gone from the route that I took in 2016. But this stuff, these soft green hills, the grass, from a distance at least, it looks so smooth. Up close it's a bit rough, but in the sunlight, this is stunning. This is the picture postcard Mongolia. A little river running through the plain, trees, the occasional gears dotted around. But behind me, the rain's chasing me, so I'm off again. Day 12, last day, lovely day, rain. My bike returned to its home, getting an oil change. after a very long ride through the rain and the cold. It's now dried up a little bit of sunshine coming. I'm waiting for a taxi to take me back to the hotel, which is only 15k away, but it'll probably take about 3 hours given the traffic that I saw coming here. But thank God that's over. My ass is killing me, my neck is killing me. It was so cold and so wet today. My feet are soaking, my trousers are soaking. But there we are, finished. The bike has made it all the way back to its home.